Ladies and gentlemen, we live in an age intoxicated by the idea of motivation. Every video, every quote, every morning ritual screams, be more, do more, achieve more. But have you ever asked yourself, why does motivation fade? Why, after the hype dies down and the excitement burns out, do you feel empty? Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychologist, offered us a deeper truth: you are not empty because you lack motivation. You are empty because you lack meaning. Let us dive beneath the surface. Let us explore the shadows where real transformation begins. And let me share with you 5 truths, 5 Jungian keynotes, that unveil why motivation fails, and what the soul truly longs for. Most people live under the illusion that the image they present to the world, their polished, edited, socially acceptable self, is who they truly are. This image, which Jung called the persona, is necessary. It helps us navigate society, fulfill roles, and maintain social harmony. But the danger lies in mistaking the persona for the self. You were taught from an early age to wear masks, to be the obedient child, the successful student, the charming friend, the competent professional. These masks were rewarded. They helped you fit in, avoid rejection, and gain approval. Over time, you learned not just to wear the mask, but to identify with it. You forgot that it was a role, a performance, a thin surface laid over something infinitely deeper. And so, modern motivation speaks to that surface. It urges the mask to perform better, to hustle harder, to run faster toward external achievements. It says become more productive, become more likable, become more admired. But it never asks, who is this you that's doing all the becoming? Who is watching the mask move? This is the root of the emptiness. You achieve the goal, but it doesn't touch the core of your being. You receive applause, but you feel unseen. You keep climbing, but there's no summit, because you're climbing someone else's mountain, in someone else's shoes. Jung warned us that the persona, if left unchecked, becomes a prison. You lose touch with the self, the totality of who you are, including not just the light, but the shadow, not just your strengths, but your wounds, your desires, your depths. The self is not what you show the world, it is what waits patiently beneath, whispering in dreams, aching in quiet moments, calling you home. This is why motivation fails. It energizes the mask, but the soul remains untouched. The journey begins when you dare to question the roles you play. When you stop asking, what do others want from me? And start asking, who am I when no one is watching? That question is not easy. It may unravel everything you thought you were, but it is the path to truth, to meaning, and to a motivation that no longer burns out. Because it arises from the inexhaustible depth of the self. To live from that place is not to chase the world's approval. It is to embody your essence. And when you do that, you no longer act to impress. You act because it is your nature to create, to love, to give, to grow. In that space you are no longer empty. You are whole. Modern motivation tells you to conquer, to silence the voice of fear, to overcome doubt, to crush weakness. You are told to push through, stay positive, never give up. But Carl Jung warned us that any part of ourselves we reject does not disappear. It retreats into the unconscious and grows in power. What you ignore becomes your shadow. And when you try to build your life on top of a rejected self, you are building on sand. You see, motivation that ignores your inner reality is not empowerment. It is escape. It is fragmentation. It splits your psyche into the acceptable self and the unacceptable self. One part of you tries to rise, while the other part, abandoned and unacknowledged, pulls you down. And so begins the cycle of sabotage, burnout, and inner conflict. You feel it when you're smiling but hollow, when you check off the goals but feel no peace, when you're praised by others but plagued by an invisible heaviness. That is the cry of your shadow self. The parts of you that were never invited to the table. Your fear, your insecurity, your grief, your unmet needs, your failures. These are not your enemies. They are your missing pieces. Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. What he meant is this: the path to wholeness is not found in suppressing the darkness, but in embracing it. Not to indulge it, not to be consumed by it, but to understand it, to listen to it, to integrate it. When you are motivated only by light, only by success, power, status, positivity, you are denying the full range of your humanity, and anything you deny becomes a hidden force within you, a shadow, a silent saboteur. The more you push it down, the more it pulls you off course when you least expect it. That is fragmentation. But there is another way, a deeper motivation, a soulful fire that rises not from escape but from acceptance. When you begin to face your fears, not run from them. When you ask what your anxiety is trying to tell you. When you sit with your pain instead of numbing it. You begin to reclaim parts of yourself you once exiled, and as you reclaim them, you grow in wholeness. You no longer fight against yourself. You move forward as a unified being. Integration does not mean you are perfect. It means you are honest. It means you are aware. It means you are no longer split between the you that strives and the you that suffers. You become one. And in that unity, your motivation becomes resilient. Not a frantic grasping for success, but a steady flame fed by truth. This is why Jungian motivation lasts. It is rooted not in fantasy but in full self-awareness. It sees the cracks and loves through them. It does not say, I must be better. It says, I must be whole. And wholeness gives birth to a purpose that cannot be shattered. Because it includes everything you are. From an early age we are taught to look upward, to aim high, dream big, reach the top. The world praises the climb, promotions, wealth, fame, recognition. And so, we become obsessed with the heights, measuring our worth by how far we can rise. But Carl Jung, with piercing clarity, reminded us that the soul does not ascend by climbing ladders of success. It descends into the depths of our being. The modern concept of purpose has been hijacked by achievement. You're told that your purpose is to make an impact, build a legacy, or become someone great. But this pursuit often masks a deeper emptiness. The higher you climb without knowing yourself, the more detached you feel. Because the heights alone cannot nourish the soul. Jung said, he who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakes. To discover your true purpose, you must dare to turn inward, into the silent, shadowy chambers of your psyche. This descent is not glamorous. It is not motivational in the conventional sense. It is a lonely, unsettling, and often painful process. You will meet parts of yourself that you've denied, avoided, or forgotten. You will face unresolved grief, buried fears, and uncomfortable truths. But it is there, in that vulnerable confrontation, that something sacred begins to stir. The depths hold the blueprint of your authentic self. Not the version that seeks approval, but the one that longs to be real. In the silence of solitude, stripped of applause and ambition, you begin to hear the faint whispers of your soul. You realize that your purpose is not something you invent. It is something you remember. Something you recover. It has been there all along, buried beneath layers of conditioning and performance. When you find purpose in the depths, it doesn't look like a grand mission statement. It feels like alignment, an inner clarity that guides your decisions, your relationships, your creativity. You are no longer trying to make something of yourself, because you finally know who you are. And from that knowing, action becomes effortless. Not because it's easy, but because it's true. Jung taught us that the descent into the unconscious, the willingness to confront our shadows and accept our full humanity, is the path to individuation. And individuation is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming yourself fully and completely. In that becoming, purpose is no longer a task. It is a way of being. So yes, the world may push you to rise. But if you have the courage to descend, to sit in the unknown, to embrace the dark with the same reverence as the light, you will find something more precious than status. You will find meaning. A quiet, enduring flame that does not flicker with circumstance. That is where real purpose lies. Not in the clouds of ambition, but in the deep waters of the soul. And when you emerge from those depths, you do not need to convince the world of your worth. Your very presence becomes a testimony to the power of truth. We are conditioned to chase achievement as if it were salvation. From the moment we step into the world, we are measured, compared, graded, and rewarded. Not for who we are, but for what we do. Success becomes the ultimate currency. You are praised when you accomplish, validated when you win, and forgotten when you fall behind. And so, you begin to believe that your worth is tied to your output. That your value lies in how much you can produce, how far you can go, how many goals you can check off. But the Psyche, the deep inner world of your being, does not speak the language of achievement. It is not impressed by your trophies or titles. It does not care about your rensuming. What it longs for is wholeness, the full integration of all that you are, light and dark, success and failure, joy and pain, strength and vulnerability. Carl Jung understood this with profound clarity. He saw that the human psyche is not striving to be impressive. It is striving to be complete, to live in a state where nothing is exiled, Nothing is hidden, and every part of the self has a seat at the table. Wholeness is not perfection. It is not becoming flawless. It is becoming real. And this is the great tragedy of modern motivationing. It tells you to become better without ever asking if you are becoming whole. You can achieve all your goals and still feel like something is missing. You can reach the peak and feel a strange emptiness echoing inside you, because if your success was built by rejecting your fears, hiding your wounds, silencing your doubts, and abandoning your inner truth, then that success is hollow. You did not build it with your whole self. You built it with a mask. Wholeness, on the other hand, is healing. It is the quiet return to authenticity. It is the deep breath of knowing you no longer have to pretend. When you seek wholeness, you stop running from your shadow. You begin to embrace it. You no longer divide your life into acceptable and unacceptable parts. Instead, you invite every part of yourself into the light of awareness. The anxious part, the angry part, the wounded part. You learn to listen, to understand, to integrate. And something miraculous happens when you dog. Your energy returns. Not the frantic, adrenaline-fueled energy of constant striving, but the calm, steady strength that comes from inner alignment. You no longer live in conflict with yourself. You are not driven by fear or inadequacy. You are moved by the quiet power of being rooted in your truth. This is what Jung meant when he spoke of individuation, the process of becoming whole. It is not a path of ambition, but a path of integration. It is not about rising above who you are. It is about returning to who you have always been beneath the noise. The world will always tempt you with achievement, but your soul will always call you toward wholeness. And in the end, it is wholeness that brings peace. Wholeness that gives life depth. Holiness that connects you to others, to the world, and to something greater than yourself. So ask yourself not, what can I achieve? But, what part of me needs to be welcomed home? In that question lies the path to healing. In that path lies the truth of your being, and in that truth, you will find what achievement could never give you, the quiet joy of being fully alive. There comes a point, often in the quiet moments, when you begin to wonder, why do I feel so tired, even when I'm succeeding? Why do I feel so lost, even when everything looks fine from the outside? You follow the routines, read the books, recite the affirmations, and yet something within you remains untouched. Some silent ache, some unlit space that refuses to be moved by motivation alone. That ache is the absence of meaning. Carl Jung understood that without meaning, no amount of external drive can sustain the inner fire. Motivation, at best, is a spark. It can ignite, it can inspire, but it cannot endure without something deeper to feed it. Motivation may push you forward for a time, but meaning is what keeps you going when everything else falls away. Meaning is the quiet force that carries you through doubt, darkness, and defeat. It is not loud or flashy. It does not need applause. It is the inner conviction that your life matters, that your suffering has purpose, that your path, however winding, is your own to walk. In a world obsessed with goals and results, we are often led to believe that meaning is found in what we accomplish. But Jung knew otherwise. He saw that true meaning is not found in outcomes. It is found in relationship, the relationship you have with your soul, with the mystery of life, with the unfolding of your own inner world. Meaning is born not in the peak moments, but in the depths. In the experiences that break you open, that bring you to your knees, that force you to ask why. It is often in our suffering, our confusion, and our despair that meaning begins to take root. And this is what most motivational messages miss. They try to skip the pain, bypass the darkness, avoid the questions. But it is in those very places that the flame of purpose is kindled. Jung spoke of the necessity of confronting the shadow, of walking into the unknown, of accepting the parts of ourselves we would rather disown. Why? Because meaning cannot be constructed from only the good parts of life. It must include everything. The heartbreak, the failures, the losses. All of it. Meaning arises when we stop running from life and start engaging with it completely. Without meaning, success is hollow. Without meaning, discipline becomes drudgery. Without meaning, even love begins to fade into routine. You may keep moving forward, but you are not alive. You are surviving, going through motions, existing on borrowed energy, and eventually, that kind of life collapses. Because the human soul cannot thrive on productivity alone. It needs something sacred to live for. Meaning does not have to be grand. It could be the quiet devotion of a parent raising a child. The honesty of an artist expressing their truth. The stillness of a person choosing integrity over convenience. The courage to be kind when it's easier not to be. Meaning lives in those subtle, powerful acts of alignment between your deepest truth and your outer life. And when you live in alignment with meaning, motivation becomes irrelevant. You no longer need to hype yourself up. You are moved by something greater. Your flame no longer flickers with changing moods or external rewards, because it is rooted in the core of who you are. It becomes a sacred fire, and sacred fires do not burn out, they burn through. So if you find yourself weary, burnt out, unfulfilled, don't ask how to get more motivated. Ask instead, what am I living for? What gives my life meaning? What makes my soul come alive? The answers may not come immediately, but asking the question is where the journey begins. Because once you find meaning, you find your way home. And there, the flame never dies. You are not a machine to be revved up with motivational speeches. You are a soul, called to awaken. When you remember who you are, not the image, but the essence, you will discover something stronger than motivationing inner fire. Purpose. Wholeness. Meaning. That is what Carl Jung knew. And that, my friends, is the flame that never leaves you empty. Thank you.